Welcome into the Landon Tengwall Show. Today, we have a very special guest, a Penn State grad, the best producer in the business, a hurt but not out Penn State fan. Producer Jesse from the Josh Pate College Football Show. Welcome in, Jesse. I appreciate you joining me.
I wish it was under better circumstances, but yet here we are, and we are looking at something we've never seen before, and that is a Penn State team that looks like it's lost its way by midseason after a loss to a team that Penn State and James Franklin doesn't normally lose to.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. It was very uncharacteristic of James Franklin and this team, and I think that was the one big positive of the 1-0 mindset, that these type of games did not happen. And you look at the losses in the past of Michigan State in 17, 18, whatever games you want to look at. It was always Minnesota. It was always a fairly good team that was kind of on the up and up, that was had some positives. There's never been a loss like this, Jesse, where it was just a destitute team, barely have any coaches. Neuheisel had admitted that he didn't even know how to work the headset. And then you drop that one with the expectations. And I think that's why Penn State fans are so angry right now and kind of calling for blood, because we were told, James Franklin came out at Big Ten Media Day and said, hey, this is the best combined staff, personnel, players, everything that I've had at Penn State. And it was natty or bust for majority of people. And you drop one to Oregon, and then you drop a unexcusable loss to UCLA. So let's talk about that game. We both watched the tape. Let's start with the offense. What were some of your main takeaways?
So I would say there's a couple of things here that need to be immediately addressed. One's Katron Allen. The usage that Katron Allen has right now is just disgusting. There's no other way to put it. It's funny, you go back to the last couple of years of Penn State football, and you can make an argument that as a freshman and sophomore, Nick Singleton had that better explosiveness. Especially last year, there was a certain period where I was like, why is it Nick playing? Why is it Nick playing? Why are we giving Katron so much? But it's been so clear that this year, Katron Allen has progressed as a running back, and Nick Singleton is just sort of either stuck in the mud or has regressed a little bit. And so for Singleton to get more touches than Allen in that game, to get Allen only 9 touches, I understand the game script was not in your favor. That's going to be a huge part of this entire reflection on the Penn State offense, was that they were down for the entirety of the game. They never once got the ball either tied or with the lead. So number one, the running backs, I know you have some thoughts on that too. Like, Katron is just running the ball so well right now. He seems like a better fit for the run game. Singleton's not breaking any explosive runs. And so I think for me, looking at the running backs first and then sort of spreading out to the offensive line and Allard, but what are your thoughts on this Singleton and Katron Allen issue right now?
Yeah, I think it's very clear what needs to happen. And I guess I have a problem. I don't know if it is a loyalty issue. I don't know if it was a we paid this much money issue. I don't know what it is. But James Franklin even said in his press conference on Monday, we talked about it before the game, that we need to get Katron Allen carries. And it just didn't happen. More involved, he said, more carries. There's no excuse. And no one followed up and asked, well, why didn't it happen? So we don't have that answer. But what is the answer? You literally admitted that you knew prior to UCLA that Katron Allen needed to be more involved, yet you still didn't do it. I'm sorry. That's basically that's just ignorance at that point. It's not even ignorance, because you clearly know Katron's sitting here at 7 yards per carry, Nick at 3.8 on the season, and Nick has 9 more carries than him. I don't know what to say. It is clear, and I've said this many times, Nick Singleton is one of the nicest human beings you will ever come across. This is not a shot at him. He is clearly going through a slump, and I feel for him, but this is business, and these guys are paid a lot of money, and you need to act as such. And that is my biggest problem right now, that it doesn't feel like we are making the right business decisions. And so, like you said, Katron Allen's seeing it better. He presses the aiming point. He sucks in the defense, and he can make one cut, and it is beautiful. And by the way, the 8 carries that Katron Allen had on Saturday, 2 of them were touchdowns. So you even look at that. You even look at that almost 6.5 yards per carry. He was capped on 2 of his 8 carries. So that it would have been over 7 yards if he wasn't capped, because there was no more yardage to get. I have such an issue with it. I have called it coaching malpractice, and I truly do believe it is that currently.
No, going off of that, and it's sort of just the Koldenicki scheme. When we lost to Oregon, and I think the 2 losses are tied, I think that there's no way to really look at the UCLA loss without looking back at the Oregon loss. But coming out of the Oregon game, I thought, and we all thought, Andy Koldenicki has one of the most creative and uses motion, uses odd looks, different people playing quarterback. And that's all well and good. But when you have creativity without substance, it's really hard to make sure that the creative things work because all of a sudden, hey, I can just make sure I'm looking for that jet sweep, which is how the game basically ends for Penn State. I'm looking for these little ticky tacky screens. I'm looking for different routes down the field that just aren't easy routes. And I feel like that's something right now for the offense is even though we scored 35 points, one of those was a punt block, and two of those were the safety that they gave us at the end of the game. So when you really look down at it, the offense just isn't operating how you want it to. It took them 3 quarters to wake up in the Oregon game, and it took them arguably an entire half to wake up here on the West Coast. So when you look at, hey, how do we make things easy? Something I saw in this game was that Kolodnicki ran a lot more under center run designs that he did in this game. He started doing at the end of Oregon, but you didn't see any of that in the first couple of weeks of the season. He's trying to get the running backs going downfield, but ultimately, and it brings me to my next point, is the offensive line and the tight ends are really struggling right now in blocking not only the pass, but the run. You would think that with how much this O-line was touted, I mean, Franklin said earlier in the season, we have 7 high-quality offensive line starters on this team. And you're just not seeing that right now outside of Ione at the guard position, in my opinion. So you have these massive guys with a lot of experience, but so much of it is zone based, and they just have to move, and they are just not hitting their combo blocks correctly. They are not getting to the next level as they need to. And so when you get the backs going east and west so much, it's hard to get north because in this scheme, it's meant to go, hey, I'm going east west. I'm putting my foot in the dirt and I'm getting upfield. And that's not really happening. A lot of the stuff stringing out, past the tackles, past the hashes, towards the sideline. So when your offensive line is struggling, I mean, we came into the season thinking that this was going to be a top 5, top 10 offensive line unit. And that was one of the reasons I was so high going into the season. I said, well, on the offensive line, that's something we can rely on. We ran for 290 last year against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. And you just take a snapshot of that to what we're seeing now, and it's not happening because teams have looked at the Kolodnicki offense and they're seeing, hey, we're not going to run man as much anymore. You guys are really gashing us when we're running man a bunch. We're going to drop back into a bunch of zones. We're going to make it a little bit harder for Aller to find his windows or find his guys. And we're not going to let this man scheme beat us in the run game. We're going to have guys playing spots. And you've seen the run game just sort of get bunched up into that. And that then cascades down to the passing game, which me and you both know after watching this film how bad that was. But in terms of the run game and the offensive line, the tight ends aren't blocking well. Reynolds missed a key block. Dinkins is missing blocks. I think Rappeliat is probably the best tight end that I'm seeing on a day-to-day basis, and he's not getting in there as much. So the offensive line is a huge concern for me. And you thought that no matter what, you have a backbone, you have the physicality that you can lean on. I'm not seeing that. Oregon out-physicaled us. You can make an argument that UCLA was much better in the trenches on both sides of the ball in this game, which is just something you could never have imagined saying a month ago.
It's so sad to me because I watched the Northwestern UCLA tape and I see a Northwestern front 7 offensive line, however, both sides, that I say, okay, you know, they handled everything. UCLA up front should be easy. This should not be an issue. We might start a little bit slow. I don't know what happened. And that's I think this is the biggest question mark, is that it wasn't like there was a lot of change. It wasn't like, hey, we're coming in, we got 3 new offensive linemen, they're transfers and they were good elsewhere, but we need to plug them in, or the tight ends weren't good. Khalil Dinkins was arguably the best run blocking tight end in all of college football last year, next to Kenyon Sadiq. And you come out and I see him on back-to-back plays just whiff as the play side tight end blocking. I don't know where the physicality went. I don't know where the attention to detail went because, as you said, you're just missing combo blocks. You're leaving linebackers just free to come in, and it's killing the running game, and it's putting you in third and not manageable anymore. And I think that is the biggest issue is, yeah, you're averaging I was comparing Ohio State. I think this was before the Minnesota game. Ohio State was averaging 3rd and 5 for their third down distance, and they were converting at a 50% clip. Penn State was at like not even a 40%. And we were at like 3rd and 6. It was like 3rd and 6, almost 3rd and 7 was our average. And we're at like 38% on third down. And we've just been horrific. And you talked about it. We talked about the run game enough. The wide receivers, I have this, I was trying not too much to like put a damper on it. I was worried that we were maybe hyping up the wide receivers to be a little bit better than they really were in terms of last year, of how different it is. I think it's somewhat similar, and you see it on tape. Jesse, they're getting no types of separation. I'm watching guys getting pressed into the sideline on a fade route. I am seeing guys give, honestly, really bad effort at times, and that was one of the most just worrying pieces for me. But I mean, what do you want Drew Aller to do? There's a reason that Drew Aller took off and ran so many times, and he looked great. And you saw and that's why I put out a tweet today. I can't put this stuff on Drew Aller right now. He is trying his best, but I don't think he's being helped out. And the play calling also, I feel like it shows a lack of confidence in the passing game. And then it's kind of like a catch-22. Well, is it Kotoniki just not showing confidence in the passing game, or is what he's seeing on tape saying, hey, look, I can't trust the passing game because our guys can't get open and they're lackadaisical. So what was kind of your take on the passing game in its totality?
Watched every single snap from this UCLA game on the All-22, and I paused it at the apex of Aller's drop. The ball should be coming out now. Where would I throw it? And there's just very little there. The throws that are there, he's making them. He's throwing it to the spot that only his receiver can catch in this game. But there's a lot of times that we're still waiting on guys getting out of their breaks. But it's not even so much like, hey, there should be a good amount of timing. Sometimes you can throw it before a guy gets out of his break, but there's no separation. So even if I am throwing the dig route inside, well, the cornerback's draped all over him, or the linebacker's dropped into coverage. And so you really are seeing the field get compacted because our explosive play numbers this year compared to last year is night and day. And we just aren't getting that over-the-top look. Like, we finally got at the very end of the Oregon game and that one pass. That was the only pass over 20 yards that we threw against Oregon. In this game, we had a couple. We had the rail route to Dinkins for the touchdown. You had the end zone fade to Hudson. That was a score. And you're seeing that when we're taking the shots, they are working more so than not, but those shots just aren't being taken. So now you're seeing that defensive back seven really just be able to sit on a lot of stuff. The wide receivers aren't getting separation. The offensive line is giving him questionable pockets. It's been relatively decent against UCLA. It wasn't against Oregon. And then, so he's getting to the back of his drop, and the ball doesn't have anywhere to go. And you see him quickly processing read one, not there, read two, not there. And his internal clock's going, hey, we need to do something. So you saw him have one of his best rushing games that you might have seen in his entire career. But that's not what we want Drew Aller to do. Like, he is a pocket quarterback. Something that we said before we got on this recording is, like, I still see so many great physical and mental intangibles with Drew Aller, but it's not meshing with this Kotelnicki offense. And you can make the argument that, hey, the Kotelnicki offense worked best when he had Jalen Daniels, a guy who could really run. It may have worked better with Bo Pribula, who's no longer there. But for no fault of that, like, that falls on James Franklin and Andy Kotelnicki, because Franklin knew that Aller was going to be his quarterback. And he went out and hired Kotelnicki, the creative mastermind out in Kansas in the Big 12. Well, that offense just isn't really translating right now. So I don't have really anything at fault on Drew Aller in this game. I thought there was maybe one or two throws that he missed, but his wide receivers aren't helping him. And so you got basically a blank game from Trevor Pena outside of a screen and a couple of failed jet sweeps. You got nothing from Devontae Ross in this game. And you got Hudson early, but that all tailed away towards the end mostly. So these transfer wide receivers, you look at how many good receivers were available. A&M went and got two of them. They got Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion. That changes the entire outlook of that team by going out and just getting those two guys. And you see even other parts of that game. So you see Florida having really good success against Texas this week. Dallas Wilson, true freshman, over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. You see Miami go out and get Malachi Toney, a 4-star, not even a top 50 wide receiver. He is now the star and focal point of their passing attack. So now you look at the transfers, we're not getting anything out of them, but Denmark's not seeing the field. Howard's not seeing the field. None of these young receivers that Marquise Higgins has gotten are seeing the field. And so you look at it and you say, how is this even possible? Like, we are Penn State. We used to have guys like Chris Godwin, Jahan Dotson, Allen Robinson. Like, it used to be flooded with talent. And right now, it's just been so devoid. You saw Harrison Wallace leave, and he has put up 100 yards per game over at Ole Miss as their number one receiver. So it's not just a thing of, hey, he can't play. Like, no, he's the number one receiver on one of the top offenses in the entire country. So there's just a disconnect between Aller, Kotelnicki, the receivers. You saw it in the Notre Dame playoff game, obviously, 0 receptions in that game. But you've seen it throughout the course of this year. Like, you've seen glimpses, but those were against inferior opponents. These are the games that you really expect those guys to step up and make plays. And there's no easy routes. There's no easy completions. And it just leads to a slog. And that's still with them scoring 28 points, even though losing the time of possession battle by nearly a quarter.
Yeah, I think you summed it up perfectly there, Jesse. There is a clear disconnect, and I've said it Clearly it just does not fit. It's square peg, round hole for sure, and there needs to be some adjustments made. Let's move over and let's talk about what was the main issue on Saturday, even though that obviously was a big issue, the defense. You have kind of charted some key plays that you saw from the Penn State defense. Talk to me a little bit.
All right. So first off, I had 7 key plays in this game in which there were 7 yards or longer on mostly third down, but there's 1 second down play here. And just prefacing this all by saying the difference between Tony Rojas to Dominic DeLuca is vast. Tony Rojas is a dog. I don't think people realize how much that injury hurt them in running a potential spy in this game, but DeLuca ran 78 of the 80 snaps of this game. It was basically him and Campbell the entire time. And DeLuca was the 3rd lowest rated player in our defense on PFF. Like it wasn't good. So wherever he was, it was disappointing. But that's not the position that a special teams captain should really be put in. He was meant to be that 3rd or 4th rotation guy. But going back to the defensive plays, so we had a 3rd and 11 on the first drive, and we get Nico explosive run number 1. And this is going to be a theme in a lot of these plays. We are in a pass rush, and Deni Dennis Sutton. We all love Deni Dennis Sutton. We think he's going to be a great player. But boy, the one thing I saw in this game was that his pass rush was going way too far up the field on the C gap so many times. So when that happens, your goal is to keep contained. But one thing about contain is, hey, I don't want him to go around me, but if I rush 5 or 6 yards up the field, I am leaving a just gargantuan gap that you could drive a Maserati through because there's no one that's responsible for this B gap in pass coverage. So you see Deni Dennis Sutton go way outside the C gap, get 6 or 7 yards up the field. Nico doesn't have anything. Well, guess what? I'm just going to run through the B gap and get a first down. It happened again on a later third and 10 on the 3rd drive. The same exact thing happened. Defensive back misses a tackle, you get a first down. You had another situation in which 3rd and 7 later in the game, run an all-out spy. There's no blitz. Sutton goes up wide again. And Nico, like all these explosive runs that Nico had, was just leaking out to the Deni Dennis Sutton side because he's like, hey, I'm just not going to keep dropping back. I'm going to step up in the pocket. There's a huge hole. No one's spying me. I'm fast. I'm athletic. And I'm going to take advantage of it. That happened on 4 of these 7 plays. And that was a 50-yard run, a 20-yard run, a 20-yard run. And then on the final play that I had for my keys was when you finally do run the spy on Nico Iamaleava on the goal line, it's like 3rd and 5. We really need it. We put Deni Dennis Sutton as the spy. He's sitting in the middle of the field. I'm like, oh, we have a spy. Sutton's not my first choice, but he's a good player. But that's not a guy who's used to playing that linebacker position. He takes 1 or 2 bad steps on the spy. Nico sees it and says, yeah, I can beat him to the pylon. So I'm not trying to cast any blame on Deni Dennis Sutton, but they took advantage of something that they saw there. And Nico knew that he could bail out time and time again through there. And that led to conversions on 3rd and 11, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 7, and a 2nd and 11, all first downs because of poor gap defense. And credit where credit's due to Nico. I think his best game of his entire career. He showed that, hey, 5-star quarterbacks, just because it might not work out the first spot, it can work out in the second spot. But man, those key plays, like if you just get 1 or 2 stops there, you're looking at a completely different game because you're probably getting the ball to the Penn State offense to go score and finally get a lead. Like UCLA had not led a single second of this season. They led for almost 55 minutes in the entirety of this game. And so that just puts you in such a big hole.
Yeah, my biggest problem, Jesse, was the lack of adjustment. Specifically on the defense of like you said, you see it. And now you have, thankfully, because Michigan cheated, you got the tablets on the sideline. And so you can actually see it in real time. When you come over, they hand you the tablet. How does someone not say, hey, Deni, you got to be careful. We all know you love that rip move that gets you home every once in a while, but you got to have a little bit more of a contain to your rush. These wide receivers aren't exactly killing us, although Nico hit some very nice passes down the field a couple different times, but it wasn't like they were killing us deep. Like, hey, let's have a contain rush here. Let's get home, and let's make sure the number one goal is on these 2nd and long, 3rd and longs, passing downs, that we make sure we keep him in the pocket. Obviously does not do that. My biggest problem is the first time you bring out a spy is about 7 minutes left in the 4th quarter after Nico has already had 5 scrambles that had him somewhere around 120 rushing yards off of those 5 scrambles, majority coming off of that 50-yard plus run. I need an adjustment there. And as you said, you put out Deni Dennis Sutton. I know we did it against Nevada, and he had a sack against Purdy. But This was not Purdy. As you said, and you and Pate talked about it, the reason why UCLA was able to win is because they had a talent at quarterback that the lower level Big Ten teams generally do not have. And I think that's where we struggled to adjust to the fact that Nico was their entire team, he was their entire offense, and we weren't able to mold the defense to say, hey, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to stop them. And like I said, you saw how, I don't know, it's frustrating. I don't know where else to go with that. It really is. I like you put Chaz Coleman there. I've talked about this. Zakee Wheatley spied Riley Leonard a couple different times in the semifinal game. Did a great job. There's got to be a different answer than the one you provided there. So I didn't, like you said, Tony Rojas being out was really hard there.
Yeah, one more thing to add there, just because Rojas was out, DeLuca and Campbell played all the snaps. Where's the rest of the linebacker depth? I think Keon Wiley played 5 snaps, and then Cam Smith played a snap, and one other person played 1 snap, Dakar Nelson. And so you look at that and you're like, what linebacker are you? We can't find anyone else to be a 3rd or 4th linebacker. And then I don't want to give the secondary just off the hook. I went through and counted the amount of missed tackles that we saw from the secondary, and I had around 14, in which you could have made much better plays, whether it was getting on the back end, coming up and run support. But when you miss that many tackles, I mean, I don't even know what the entire defensive number was. It's not good if I'm counting this many just from the secondary, but we just didn't go in and tackle well. And so you're not going to win when you're missing tackles that could help you save 4 or 5 yards. So instead of looking at a 3rd and 3, you're looking at a potential 3rd and 9 if you make the tackle. Instead, now they're in short yardage. They were aggressive. They had the great scheme. And we played a lot of press coverage. I don't know exactly why. They hit a couple of big passes on us, but we were just giving them the 5-yard outs, the hitches, the slants all game. And nothing changed there. And so you look at a 33-year-old offensive coordinator calling plays for the first time, not knowing how to run a headset. He ran circles around the highest paid defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, and we didn't have any adjustments or any answers. I think ultimately, I came into the season and I told Pate this. I thought we were going to have to be an offensive team this year. I thought we had some really good players in Zane Durant, Sutton, Rojas, Wheatley, Harris. But the rest of the team has not really stepped up. And even some of those guys have just shown poor moments. So now you're looking at it and, well, now you're 3-2, and there's a lot of questions. A lot of questions.
There absolutely are there. Jesse, I want to get your take before we move on and talk some Coach Franklin logistics and where do we go from here. I do want to get your take. UCLA, it's 4th down. They are going to punt the ball at the end of the game. Gary Danielson lets us all know, everybody's hearing it. It's probably going to be a safety because you do not want to punt it from your own end zone. You think that they would rush everybody and you get a free punt return where there's no one within 15 yards. You could return that back to the 30-yard line and be in very good position. So, of course, UCLA makes the correct decision to take the safety. I think what did they burn? I mean, almost like 10 seconds at least because you do not rush. James Franklin said in his press conference, they talked about it. They thought that he was going to punt. James Franklin said on his headset, there was conversation that there might be the safety situation. And he said, we should have rushed guys. Your take on all of that?
That is going to be the one spot to where everyone's going to go and leap and have their pitchforks out. If Gary Danielson doesn't say that on the broadcast, how many Penn State fans are really looking at that play the same? You're looking at a situation to where, yes, a rush would have made sense, but if you think that they're going to punt it, and there's a lot going on in a football game. And so I don't want to bury the staff for that, but overall, the special teams, sure, we got the punt block, which we really needed, but the onside kick was really what set us back. And then to have that's just multiple miscues that just sort of being brushed over. But all in all, it just sort of points that we lost in all 3 phases as a coaching staff. I don't think Andy Koldenicki, Jim Knowles, or the special teams coach here did what they needed to do for us to go out and win a West Coast game. And that ultimately cannot happen when you're Penn State. And especially when UCLA fires their head coach. You have a guy, Tim Skipper, making his first ever Power 4 head coaching game. And what can you say? It's so frustrating because those things never happened at Penn State before. And that's why the fan base is so angry. I know it's going to sort of roll into our next point here, but we're so angry because, all right, James, you've been a B-plus player. We love James Franklin. He is a great coach. He gives us a lot of access. He has been a boon for the Penn State community for so long. And you watch and you see the growth from 2014 to 2019, and it was massive. We went from being a team still working out of the sanctions to being a Big Ten championship contender. But where's the growth been since 2019? We just went out and lost every single big game, and it was okay because hey, we're doing the steering wheel approach. 10-2, our hands aren't moving. 10-2 in the expanded playoff is going to be really, really good. And now this is the first time to where in back-to-back games, James Franklin has lost as a favorite. And I think that's where the fan base is at. It's like that Oregon whiteout game was so important for us. We needed that one win. We had every single external dynamic working towards that game, and you get clipped. And I think it became fairly apparent that as you got into this UCLA game, it's sort of like a boxer. You're in a boxing match, you go through a big fight, you get clipped in round 8, you make the 10 count, you get back up, but the lights aren't on. You got the Krispy Kreme look in your eyes. And then you go into UCLA and they're able to deliver the knockout punch. And now Franklin's trying to sell to the fan base, hey, we're not done yet. Ohio State lost twice last year. They still won the national championship. But I don't think there's any Penn State fan looking at this team right now at 3-2 with the schedule that we have remaining and thinking that Penn State is still a national championship contender.
I'm right there with you, brother. I guess you kind of started to take us there, but where does Penn State go from here? The whole conversation is majority of the fan base. This is the first time in a long time since I've been around. I'd say I've been around since 2017 when I really started getting recruited here, where I've seen full alignment for the most part from the fan base that I am seeing fire Franklin all over. And that's not just on Twitter. I'm hearing that from donors I'm talking to. I'm hearing that from everywhere. $56 million. Talk to me about the situation. You put out the tweet that you just simply do not have the funds to do that right now. I want to pose the question. Is there a world, if you drop enough games, if you drop enough Iowa, even Nebraska, an Indiana, and you drop 3 or 4 games, do you think they could pull the trigger on James Franklin?
56 million. Like people, the amount of people in my mentions saying, I don't care, fire him. I don't care. We'll find it. We'll crowdsource it. Adidas has it. And guys,
Adidas has it.
Is just, that is a lot of money. Like NIL and the money that you use to pay a buyout is the same. So you're basically saying not only are we getting rid of a coach who has led us to multiple double-digit win seasons because of one bad season, albeit the season that we thought would be the season that would take us to the peak, but in what world can you do that, guys? Like, you just can't. It's $56 million. So the idea of that we're just going to flat out fire him, the only way that I think that happens is if the season continues to go south and you see Franklin and Penn State come to an agreement a la Sam Pittman. Hey, I'm going to bring the buyout down to a certain number that you guys think is palatable. We're going to do a clean split. It's probably best for both parties at that point. But just saying that we're going to fire him with the $56 million buyout is asinine. Now, is there creative solutions that could happen? Maybe. I think what a lot of people in the industry right now are hoping, at least from the Penn State side, is that we get to the end of the year and there's just another job on the market that throws Franklin enough money and for him to look around saying, I think I've done all we can do here. A Mark Richt situation at Georgia. Mark Richt was a wonderful coach for Georgia. He got them on the doorstep and on the precipice, but never won the big game. He leaves, Kirby Smart comes in, and now Georgia is a powerhouse in the entire country. So 2 things on that. One, who's that coach out there that's just ready to step in and for sure take Penn State to the next level? I don't know who that is. And then number 2, what job does Franklin go and take? You start looking around the country, Arkansas doesn't make sense. UCLA doesn't make sense. Maybe Virginia Tech, if they're willing to pony up enough money and get some stuff going on there, but they just had a bad experience with Brent Pry, a former Penn State person. So where does Franklin go? I think ultimately it really gets to how venomous this gets. And I hate to say it, like the toxicity of the situation, but it feels like we're just sitting on the edge of tar pits right now. And we are finally just starting to wade in ankle high. And the fan base is tired of the 1-0, 1-0, beat Northwestern, the same stuff that we're getting in the press conferences. It feels like there's no tone shift. It's very tone deaf at this point because you were just hoping for James to acknowledge this is completely and utterly not the way that this should be going right now. And we're going to fix it. But what heads are going to roll? You can't fire your DC. You just hired him. You're probably not going to fire Koldenicki. Like, what, do you want to throw Marcus Hagans off, under the bus because he's a wide receiver coach? Yeah, that probably will happen at the end of the year, but there's just no recourse right now. So you're seeing a very frustrated fan base with no place to really put their emotions because Franklin is being a wall because he has to. He's protecting his team from the venom right now. And if that means he's having to take 1,000 arrows in his back, to try to get his team to 9-3 and still have a good season, he's going to do that. But you have the fan base who's already looking towards next year, and you have a coach who's trying to figure out what's going on this year. And when you are at a disjointed spot with your fan base and your head coaching staff than you are right now, it leads to you can't fire him, but boy, does it feel like something needs to change.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful too, the locker room and losing that. I was in there in 2021 and we were the number 4 team in the nation, went to Iowa number 3, and you lose that, and then follow that up with 9 overtimes against Illinois, and it all goes downhill. So that's kind of eerily similar to 2021 in the sense of you lose one you really should not, and do you let it all fall apart? I think you got a couple games, you even have it at Michigan State. That's kind of like creeps up in there. You go to Rutgers. I mean, you have to be very careful with those. One more thing to add with the buyout situation, not only if you were to just fire him, as you said, the people that are saying, find it, we got rich donors. Number one, there's a reason we've struggled with NIL up to this point. Finally, we're in a decent place to start this year. But not only the $56 million, but then you got to pay the next coach that comes in. And if you want a Kenny Dillingham, a Signetti, whoever it is, you have to put up like $80 million. So it's not only the 56, but it's then the money you got to pay on top. It's not going to happen at 56. If you, like, as you said, if you work out some type of deal after the season, then I think I could see it happening. But as it stands right now, I do not believe James Franklin will be fired at this moment. Jesse, I want to leave this on a positive note.
Okay.
Give me your greatest memory as a Penn State football fan.
Oh, man. So I was at the whiteout in 2016. I was in the stadium, and when you block that field goal, like I got chills right now just talking about it because it's such a, you block the field goal, you return it. I mean, that was probably the last time we beat a top 5 team, but that was when it was. But that's 2016. It's a long time ago, but I was in college. You go down, you rush down to the city, and the streets are flooded. You got mattresses being set on fire. You have all this chaos going on, but it was because everyone was finally like, we did it. We beat Ohio State. We got the win that we needed to get us to getting out of the sanction era. Because we were still pretty close to that. Like, you had the Saquon, you had McSorley, you had a lot of good talent on that team. But that was probably the happiest one. You had some other times in between there where, hey, winning the playoff games were cool. But Boise and SMU, it's like every little thing there is with a little asterisk. Like, how we've had those good seasons, we had that, but being able to, as a college student, be able to say, hey, we won that game. It led to the Big Ten championship win that year. It led to a lot of really good memories. That is probably the top one for me.
I appreciate you sharing that. I figured we needed a little bit of we had to rejoice in some of the great moments we've had, because I will say we're talking about the possibilities of firing James Franklin. I do want to give him his flowers for, as you said, taking us out of the darkness that was the sanction era. He had defensive linemen playing offensive line. He did one heck of a job building this program up. But I think you and I and a lot of the fans are in agreement at this point that it's kind of like that tipping point of the divorce where it's just like, I think this is as far as we go. I don't know how you reconcile from this point. But look, I don't know. I mean, I know it seems very far-fetched and no one wants to hear it, but I don't know. You find a way to win out. You're in the college football playoff, so it's still technically there. It just looks incredibly grim, and I don't think it is going to happen. But Jesse, any final words for us? And once again, thank you so much. You are a very busy man, killing it over there at the Josh Pate College Football Show, so we appreciate it. Any final words for us?
Yeah, ultimately, I want people to make sure recency bias isn't winning out. We're all angry. We're all disappointed. We're all sad. There's a real chance that we go 8-4 this year. Is that really enough to fire James Franklin? Like, we're hurting, I think, is the big thing. Is you hoped that this year was going to be different, and it's not. It's been time and time again. The Charlie Brown pulls the football out when you go for the kick. And when it happens so many times, you begin to just look and say, oh, this is just going to keep happening. But we have a good recruiting class coming in. We see some really good players. The program is still up there. And you never know if the next coach is going to be better. So for all the negative stuff that we said over the last 2 weeks, you could probably go back and change one play of the Oregon game, and all of a sudden you come out of that with a completely different energy. You go and change a couple of plays in this UCLA game, and while there's a lot of warts, you could still potentially have all your hopes and dreams in front of you. Can they get it fixed? I don't know. It's hard to imagine, but don't stop supporting the program. If you want the program to reach that final apex, instead of making a GoFundMe to fire Franklin, find a GoFundMe that's for Penn State NIL. Go and donate. Go and put your money where your mouth is. So ultimately, we're going to see how the rest of the year goes on. And I hope it's better than what the last 2 weeks have been. But let's just not get too far into the forest without seeing the trees.
I think that's some great insight. Producer Jesse, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe. Peace.